Hello everyone, this is Dan Groninger for GE Inspection Technologies, and welcome to the first in our series of instructional videos on the use of Create. Create is the software package that we use to create and build apps to distribute on our Mentor series of instruments, mainly the Mentor UT, ultrasonic phased array, and Mentor EM, eddy current instrument. To start off with, you may be wondering where to get a copy of Create. Create is provided at no charge with a Mentor instrument. So if you received a Mentor instrument package, there should be a memory stick, a USB memory stick included with the Mentor in the hard shipping case. And on that memory stick you'll find several directories. One directory has documentation, all the manuals in several languages for the Mentor instruments. There'll also be an installation folder for Create, and there will be a folder with some basic apps to go on the instrument. If you do not have an instrument, do not have the memory stick, and you happen to be watching the video from our box, our GE box, you'll notice that we have included an instruction sheet for how to download and install Mentor Create as one of the items that you can see in the box alongside this video. And inside the set of instructions, there's a link to an internet file server. You can click the link. You'll see this page. Click the name Create. If you click on the folder, it doesn't work. It's just the way this web page works. So you click on the name Create. It will take you to this folder where each of the released versions of Create is available for you to download. I would recommend you choose the most recent version, 2.0. Click the download button over here on the right hand side, and it will download, and you'll be able to run it from your downloads folder or copy it to a local folder on your PC and run it. It installs just like any other piece of PC software. One thing to be aware of, you will need to be logged in as an administrator on your PC in order for the installation to complete successfully. We have noticed some issues that people have had when they were not logged in as administrator. So for most of you internal to GE, that won't be an issue. You'll be an administrator of your own machine. Also handy to download from the file share is a copy of the Mentor Create manual. It's in PDF form, so you can download that and peruse it as well. So once you have installed Create on your machine, if you go to All Programs, GE Inspection Technologies, Mentor Create, Mentor Create. So Create's a quite involved application. It takes a few seconds to load, so don't panic if it doesn't load instantly when the logo pops up. Now once you've entered Create, you'll see something that looks very much like this, although you won't see on a fresh install of Create this large collection of apps. This is my personal copy. Obviously I've created quite a few apps for both UT and EM. So you can scroll up and down through your collection of apps. One thing to be aware of, which surprises people oftentimes, is that there are not separate versions of Create for the eddy current or the ultrasonic instrument. We designed Create to be instrument agnostic. So one Create program can support a wide variety of instruments in the Mentor family. So far we've done Mentor UT and Mentor EM. The same version of Create can be used to develop apps for either equally well. If you have a large collection of apps, you can simplify the view, how many of them are visible on the screen, by using the filters. I said show me all Mentor EM apps, show me just Mentor UT apps, or show me all. And I can sort by name, or I can sort by the most recent apps that I've been working on. If I have an app on a memory stick from say someone else has written an app and they want to share it with me, they've emailed it to me or sent it to me on a memory stick, you can use the import feature. I'm going to look at the memory stick that I have plugged in. I've got a wide variety of apps on my memory stick. Again, I can choose one of those. If I say open, Create will import that app into the Create archive, and at that point I can edit that app or work with it, make improvements to it. If I want to create a new app, I use the new. I'll get a pop-up where I give it a name. I fill in some metadata for the app, some header kind of information, if you will. The name of the app, who I am as the author, the company I'm working for, comments and description about the app. I can give it a version number. It's very important, of course, that you choose what instrument you want to target with this app. Do we want to do an eddy current app for EM, or do we want to do a UT app, Mentor UT? If there are more than one version of the instrument released that are substantially different, you'll be able to choose between those versions. In this case, you want to choose release 1, instrument hardware 5. Those are the defaults for a UT app. Intended asset is just a comment field where you can mention the type of object that you want to inspect with this app. You can also pick a different logo for the app. So I can pick any JPEG or PNG type file, and that will become the logo that's shown on the app once I've created it. Okay, before we go through and create the app, it's just one or two more things. The user guide is available. The button's in the upper right hand corner. You have a help button where you can get the user guide, or you can get about information that will detail which version of Create you're using. Settings, you can pick the units that you're comfortable operating in. So for distance, inches or metric, degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit, and if you're working on an eddy current app for conductivity, you get to choose your conductivity units, either megasiemens per meter or percent International Annealed Copper Standard. So that only sets the units that are used while you're creating the app. Obviously on the instrument, the user in the field has his choice of working in either inch or metric units on the instrument. So it doesn't matter which set of units you select here in Create. You can still operate in either set when you get to the instrument. It's just whatever makes you most comfortable. All right. So let's create a, we'll call it Create UT Video App. I will give it my name with GE. Demonstrate, create. Okay, we'll just leave the description blank. We'll make it version 0.1. We're going to target Mentor UT. And let's pretend we're going to, I'll do a basic corrosion app. So we have a little logo that we've predefined that is a piece of corroded steel. And when I'm happy with all of that, I say save. I can also choose to lock the app once it's created. That means I can assign a password to it, and no one may edit that in Create or make changes to it in Create without knowing the password that I've assigned. So we're going to go leave this one open for now. And I have saved it, and you notice it's now added to my collection of apps. If I double click on that, there's the header data, header information that we just added. And this, we're now in the section of Create where we can edit the app. We've created it. Now we have it available to edit and build on. A couple of sections of Create to be aware of here. You have some buttons here at the top that let you choose the layout. That becomes a little bit more important here in a moment when we get to building the panels of the app. There is a color palette editor. This allows us to build custom palettes for ultrasonic displays, for C scans, for E scans, things like that. We can create custom color palettes. There's an undo and redo, save, simulation, which in versions of Create up through release 2.0 really doesn't provide much functionality. That's a feature for the future. And just like out in the main panel, you have help and settings, the same help and settings that you had before. Off on the left-hand side, we have more or less a table of contents to building your app. So you have general, which is that header information. You have settings, and settings is a collection of all of the control parameters on whichever type of instrument you chose to build the app for. All right, so we chose Mentor UT. So what we see here are all of the general settings parameters that are available in a Mentor UT. One important one is acquisition state. That's specific to the instrument. Stop means the ultrasonic hardware is turned off when the app loads. If you really want to do much in the way of ultrasonic scanning, you're going to want to set that to free run, and that way your data will be flowing when you start the app on the instrument. There's a section here that is specific to the conventional channels. CV is conventional. So you have parameters that describe your probe, the setup of your gates, some calibration, some information about your calibration block that you'll use in velocity calibration or probe delay, and then your pulsar receiver settings. Most of these should be familiar to anyone familiar with ultrasound. Okay. There's a section for the phased array side of the instrument. Again, probe, wedge, focal laws, your scan pattern, gate setup. Material is describing the part that you're going to be using to test, and these parameters set some initial conditions for the app and are also used in setting up some of the data displays. So part thickness will help contribute automatically to setting your A-scan delay and range and some other view information automatically for you at certain parts of the calibration of the instrument. You have your scan pattern. This is where you describe the mechanical movement of the probe over the part under test. So if you're using quadrature encoders to encode the X and Y position of the probe on a plane over your part, this is where you would describe it. So you can choose what type of scan you're doing. Line scan is one axis encoded, raster scan is encoding two axes, and freehand scan is just a timed, you're freely moving the probe. You don't have encoded positional information. And you can choose to have the scanning triggered by either encoded movement or timed. So lots of options there specific to the phased array side of the instrument. Again, description of your calibration block, what type of velocity calibration you want to do, and pulsar and receiver settings. Okay. Once you have all of the initial conditions set, you start to think about panels, and panels are what you see when you run the app on the instrument. You can think of an app for inspection as similar to a PowerPoint presentation describing the inspection procedure, but on the instrument you get to combine instruction and guidance with actual instrument operation and data views. So we're going to build up our app out of a series of panels or slides. We use the term panels in Create. So when I've entered the panel section, I can add a panel, I can delete a panel, or I can clone or copy a panel. So I'm going to choose to create a panel. Now you notice this added a number of pieces to create. What I see in the middle of the screen here is the same thing that I would see on the instrument. So this should look very familiar to you. You have the navigation bar along the bottom, you have the header bar across the top that gives you some information about the instrument operation, and then you have a big working area here in the middle. And you notice right now that's blank because we haven't added anything to this panel yet. Over here on the right side, I have a collection of things that I can do to or for this panel. I have panel settings, so I can come in here and I can make changes to settings on this panel. I can choose any one or several parameters at random from the full list, and just like before, I can look at conventional or phased array setups specific to this panel. Now, if I make changes here, there's an important concept to understand in apps and create. When we build an app, parameters can be either inherited or forced. If I make a change here specific to the panel to a parameter, anytime the operator of the instrument goes to that panel, that parameter will be forced to the value that I chose here. When I'm in my general setup and I make changes to parameters, I'm making changes to the parameters that will be the default value or the initial value when the app is started. If I go to a panel, I open a menu, I change that parameter value, it will stay at whatever I change it to until I change it again, or until I close the app and reopen the app. That is called inherited. All right, so if I look in my general settings, if you recall, I chose to set acquisition state to free run. You'll notice free run is now showing in blue, where the other parameters are showing in black. The parameters in black are the default values chosen by the software team when they built the instrument. Parameters shown in blue, I have chosen to force for the entire application. Okay, so when the app first loads, the initial value of acquisition state will now be free run. Had I left it inherited, and it inherited the default value chosen by the software team, that would be stop. If I change it to free run, now you notice it's forced. Blue is forced, inherited is black. So that's easy enough to remember. But inherited means that the value stays at whatever you set it to from the menu on the instrument or whatever it was initialized to. If it's forced here in the setup section, that means it's forced once when the app loads, and after that it remains at whatever the user sets it to. If you come into a panel and you force a parameter value here, then what happens is anytime I come to that panel, it will be forced to that value. So if I want to force a value at the start, I don't want to do it in a specific panel, even panel 1. I want to do it when the app loads through the initial setup. It's a very important concept to keep in mind. It can be very confusing when you're building your first couple of apps. Okay. Now, when we've created a panel here, and I double clicked on the panel name, and I'm going to change the name of the panel to Welcome. All right, now I'm going to begin adding controls to that panel. When I choose the Controls tab over here on the right, I have several different tabs or buttons that I can choose from. The first one is parameters, and that's all of the parameters that we saw in the parameters list. I have readouts. The little eyeglasses symbol is for readouts. These are calculated data values, readings, that the instrument can measure and display a numerical value. I have data views, and there are 4 different types of data views available on a Mentor UT. I've got amplitude view, I have an A scan, C scan, and a frame view, or E scan. And in addition to that, I have what we call static content or instructional content. And we're going to start with this. So one of the first things I want to do, since this is a welcome panel, is I'm going to add a rich text box. I pull my text box out, I click in it, I say welcome to the video example app. And wow, I can hardly see that. But if I take my mouse, I click and drag to select that, it pops up a format, a text format tool, and I can adjust my, all the normal things that you can adjust about a font, you can adjust. And I can make a text box to put at the center of my panel. If I wanted to add a PDF viewer, let's say I wanted to add a procedural document to this panel and allow my user to read it. So all I did was clicked on PDF viewer, dragged it out onto the screen. I'm going to right click in the header here, import a PDF file. So now I'm going to go point to a file that I want to include. And we use the file that we talked about earlier, that is where to go download and install Mentor UT. I can also put pictures or live action videos, MP4 files. We can do the same way. You just drag the item out onto the screen, right click in the header, point to the picture or to the video, whatever you want to include in that, and it's included. So now let's add another panel, and we'll call this one Simple View. And now perhaps it would be interesting to add an A-scan data view. Now I can give names to these data views. I don't have to. I can click this button, the generate default name. Create will choose a name for me automatically. I might want to add it or give it a name, and it will save that, and I can have multiple instances of this same data view. I can choose to keep adding instances of it by name, in which case all of the display settings that I choose on one will carry over to another. If I generate several A-scans, each with different names, each one of those A-scans can have its own independent set of display settings. An important distinction once you're onto the instrument. Now on a Mentor UT, it's often more convenient if your A-scan is vertically oriented. So you notice I clicked on the A-scan object out here on the layout panel, and when I did, under component properties, I see a set of properties that are unique to that A-scan object. If I click out here on the panel, I get the list of properties that is unique or global to that panel. So in this case, I'm going to determine that my panel is a setup type panel. My A-scan, I want to make vertical. Then I want to go back to controls, and let's add a sector scan or an E-scan. I'll just generate the default name to the panel as well. So now if I can resize, you'll notice when I have an item selected, I get little drag boxes. So I can resize these to any size that I want. I can bring them side by side, line them up, and you'll notice I have a little bit of a layout grid on the panel. I can make adjustments to the spacing of the grid to make it more convenient to lay out my item. I can change the size of the layout, fit it to the screen. So all those controls are available as well. All right, with that, I think we're going to take a break. When we come back in the next video in the series, we'll talk more about specifics of managing the data views and the items that are on your panels. We'll talk about how to show or hide menu buttons. We'll talk about how to show or hide or lock items on the menus as well. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back with you in the next series, in the next video in the series. Again, this is Dan Groninger for GE Inspection Technologies. Thanks.